Welcome to Notebook Nuggets.
Great to be here.
Today, we're going to get into a real classic, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Ah, yes, a book that's, well, it's still incredibly relevant, isn't it?
Totally. We got requests to sort of break down its main ideas for building better connections. So our mission today is to unpack some key strategies, make them practical.
Right. And the interesting thing about Carnegie is how he observed people. It wasn't just theory. It was based on real human interaction, understanding what actually makes people tick.
Okay, so let's dive in. The first big idea, and maybe a bit counterintuitive for some, is about arguments. Carnegie wasn't a big fan, was he?
No, not at all. He basically concluded after watching countless debates that they're mostly futile.
Futile how?
Well, he famously said something like, 9 times out of 10, people just end up more convinced they were right all along.
Huh. That really rings true, actually. You feel attacked, you defend.
Exactly. Your defenses go up. Confirmation bias kicks in, You look for anything that supports your side. It's just human nature. And Carnegie also pointed out, even if you do manage to win the argument, technically,
You might still lose.
you might still lose, yeah, because you could damage the other person's pride, make them feel small or resentful. And is that temporary win really worth harming the relationship? Probably not.
Right. So his advice wasn't get better at arguing, it was.
Pretty much avoid them altogether if you can. Find common ground instead. Focus on understanding. Prioritize the connection over scoring points.
Okay, that flows really nicely into the next point, which is about specifically not saying you're wrong.
Oh, absolutely. They're tightly linked. Saying you're wrong directly is like, well, it's like waving a red flag.
Instantly puts people on the defensive.
Right. It challenges their judgment, their intelligence, maybe, and they just shut down to whatever you're going to say next.
Carnegie had a great story to illustrate this, didn't he?
Yeah, the one about Wayne the Woodchopper and Carl the Builder, that's a classic. Can you remind us how that went?
Sure. So Carl the builder mostly used pine. He ordered oak from Wayne, who specialized in it.
When the oak arrived, Carl wasn't happy. He said it wasn't good quality, refused to pay. But really, he just didn't know oak, which has different characteristics than pine.
Right. So Wayne knew Carl was mistaken. He could have just said, look, you don't understand oak.
He could have, but he didn't. Instead, he started asking questions like, what's the problem with the wood? What specifically don't you like? He framed it as trying to understand Carl's needs better for, future orders.
So he wasn't correcting, he was inquiring, positioning himself as helpful.
Exactly. A collaborator, not an adversary. And that approach, that friendly, cooperative vibe, it worked wonders.
How so?
Well, Carl, feeling like he wasn't being attacked, started to actually reconsider. He started asking Wayne questions about oak, sort of admitting his own lack of experience indirectly.
Yeah, eventually.
Eventually, he realized his initial judgment was off, and he paid the bill quite willingly.
Wow. So Wayne got what he wanted, but Carl didn't feel belittled. He kind of corrected himself.
That's the beauty of it. Wayne let Carl save face. It just shows people respond way better when you explore their view with curiosity, rather than just shutting it down.
Such a subtle but powerful difference. Okay, building on that cooperation idea, Carnegie also talks about asking questions instead of giving orders.
Yes. Another simple yet really effective shift. Turning a demand into a question just makes people more receptive.
Why do you think that is?
It gives them a sense of autonomy, I think. A feeling of choice, even if it's small. It makes them feel like they're participating, not just being dictated to.
Yeah, I can see that. Do you have an example maybe from the book?
The book uses a really relatable one, the dishes. You could bark, do the dishes with me now.
Which probably won't go over well.
Right. Or you could ask, hey, could you possibly give me a hand with the dishes when you get a chance?
Totally different feel. The second one gives them agency. They're choosing to help.
Precisely. Even if they were going to do it anyway, being asked feels better. It fosters partnership. It's amazing how that little language tweak can change the whole interaction. Worth thinking about how often we default to orders.
Definitely. It's a small change, big psychological impact.
Okay, so avoid arguments. Don't say you're wrong. Ask questions. What's next on the list?
The next one sounds almost too simple, but Carnegie insisted on its power. Remembering and using people's names.
The name thing. Andrew Carnegie himself was apparently quite good at this, even as a kid.
Yeah, there's that great story about his pet rabbits when he was young.
Oh, right. Refresh my memory.
Well, he didn't have enough food for them, so he told the neighborhood kids if they gathered clover and dandelions for the rabbits, he'd name the baby bunnies after them.
And it worked?
Like a charm. The kids were thrilled to have a rabbit named in their honor. It tapped into that fundamental desire for recognition. He got it, even back then.
Amazing. And he used this later in business too, right? The Pullman story. Absolutely. A really key example. He was negotiating with George Pullman, the sleeping car guy. They were discussing merging their companies.
Okay.
Pullman was interested, and he asked what the new company would be called. Carnegie, apparently without missing a beat, said, why, The Pullman Palace Car Company, of course.
Just like that, giving Pullman top billing.
Just like that. And reports say Pullman's face just lit up. He was delighted. That gesture, acknowledging Pullman's name and legacy, supposedly smoothed the whole deal significantly.
It really shows how much our names, our identities mean to us.
Immensely. So remembering and using someone's name correctly, it's not just polite, it's a direct signal. I see you, I recognize you, you matter.
Makes a huge difference,
Yeah.
even just meeting someone new. If you remember their name later, they notice.
Definitely. It shows you were present, you were listening, you valued the interaction. It's a small effort with a potentially big payoff and connection.
Okay, names are huge. So we've covered arguments, being wrong, questions, names. Now we get to what the source material called maybe the biggest principle, talking in terms of the other person's interests.
Yes, that seemed to be highlighted as the real cornerstone. If you had to pick just one thing from the book, perhaps this is it. Shift the focus. Make it about them.
Talk about what they care about, not just what you care about.
Exactly. The narrator in the source material even shared a personal story about this, right? Struggling to connect initially.
Yeah, they found that trying to find common ground based on their own hobbies wasn't working as well as just asking about the other person's interests.
Right. It wasn't about finding overlap immediately, but about showing genuine curiosity in what lit them up.
And there was that specific conversation with Amy that really drove it home.
Mm-hmm. So the narrator asked Amy a simple question. What do you like to do in your spare time? Amy listed a bunch of things: music, dancing, drawing, reading, cooking.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, but the key wasn't just hearing the list. The narrator then asked specific follow-up questions. Oh, you like reading? What kind of books? And drawing sounds cool. What sort of things do you draw?
Digging a little deeper.
Yeah.
Showing real interest.
Exactly. And Amy's reaction was apparently quite striking. She got really animated, talked enthusiastically about her passions.
And then she noticed it herself, didn't she?
She did. She apparently said something like, wow, I'm really getting into this. It's so rare someone actually asks and listens about this stuff. Thanks.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Just by showing genuine interest, the narrator made Amy feel really seen and valued.
Absolutely. And that simple interaction apparently became the foundation of a strong friendship.
Mm.
It worked everywhere: business, family, meeting new people. Focus on their world.
Be interested, not just trying to be interested.
That's the essence of it. Make the other person feel important, feel understood, and they'll naturally feel more connected to you. It's just the whole energy of the conversation.
It really does. Okay, so wrapping this up. As you go about your day, maybe keep these Carnegie nuggets in mind.
Yeah. Think about it. Can you sidestep that pointless argument?
Right. Or when you disagree, can you ask curious questions instead of just saying, you're wrong?
Can you phrase that request as a question?
Make that extra effort to remember someone's name.
And maybe most fundamentally, can you consciously shift the conversation to focus on the other person's interests?
It's a lot to think about, but even picking one to focus on could make a difference. What stands out to you, our listener, as something you could try right away?
Yeah. Which of these feels most actionable for you today?
For me, I think it's that follow-up question thing. When someone shares an interest, really making a point to ask one more question about it, it seems so simple, but like that Amy story showed, it can mean a lot.
Those small intentional shifts often have the biggest impact. We really encourage you to reflect on these ideas, see which ones resonate, and maybe experiment a little.
And we'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Which principle clicked for you? How might you use it? Sharing your experiences helps everyone learn.
Absolutely.
And of course, if you found this deep dive useful, please give it a like, share it with someone else who might appreciate it, and definitely subscribe for more Notebook Nuggets.